Good Friday morning. And we come to another end of another work week. If you're working at home, it's still a work week. Anyway, there's a couple things I wanted to do today. One of them is to talk about, because we were on the subject of spirits and the objectivity or subjectivity of spirits and stuff. And I'm trying to stress the universality of the concept of what we could actually call a spirit, because a spirit can be something that we don't usually associate with vaporous, ghost-like apparitions with consciousness and volition all of their own, that we like a magical Svengali hypnotize and make our slaves and things like that. From a metaphoric point of view, that's okay. But they can be something far more real and far more profound and far more personal than that. And I'd like to broaden our idea of possibilities of working with spirits that don't seem like fit the classical mold of what a spirit is. Okay. So I was going to share a little story from Low Magic about a magical operation, a spirit evocation, if you will, that I called the Rabbi's Dilemma. And I thought it'd be a nice little Friday thing. It may be long enough to bleed over into tomorrow, but we'll see. This is chapter 12 of Low Magic. It's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. Published by the good folks at Llewellyn. The epigram is Michel Foucault from the Order of Things. Divination is not a rival form of knowledge. It is a part of the main body of knowledge itself. The reader who's come so far with me should by now have a fair idea of my basic field theory. It is with the most profound conviction that I embrace the words that form the subtitle of this book. It's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. This is not to say, however, that I believe magic is purely psychological. What I'm saying is that there is more we don't understand about the human mind than we do understand. With each new discovery, we draw nearer to the realization that the mind is not limited by the brain. In fact, our brains, bodies, our world, and even time and space are manifestations and aspects of mind. If we truly understand the limitless wonders of the mind and if we truly understood the limitless wonders of the mind and its relationship with the universal consciousness, we would know that in actuality there can be no outside of the mind, no outside of ourselves. Does the mind explain everything? Theoretically, yes. But I would be the biggest liar in the universe if I were to even suggest that I am firmly in touch with that level of consciousness where everything is explained to me. And that's one of the reasons I find magic so fascinating and at times so unexplainable. One does not need to understand every detail of the inner working of a computer in order to install and operate a complex program. So too, the magician does not need to objectively understand every detail of the inner workings of the infinite mind in order to operate the system. I do feel, however, that in this day and age it is wise to give credit where credit is due. And woe to the sanity of the modern practitioner who would have others believe that he or she has guilefully cornered the market on understanding magical powers. I reiterate all this because I'm about to share two stories about magical operations I've done for the benefit of others. Such efforts, when not considered carefully, threaten to challenge my "it's all in your head" field theory. After all, if the only thing I can change with magic is myself, then how can I seemingly help others with my magical endeavors? Do I think that I am ultimately responsible for all the good and evil in the world? I must confess that I'm always not clear on my own answers to those questions. But there's one thing upon which I am clear. Every bit of information that reaches the receptors of my senses and is processed by my brain, every myth I hear, every historical event I read about, every news story I watch, every book I read, every person I meet, every object, idea, image, sound, feeling, taste, emotion, observation, fear, or longing I encounter, everything changes me and becomes a living component of my conscious and subconscious reality. I am inextricably linked to everything that enters my realm of consciousness, and I am 100% responsible for how I process, react, and respond to it. It might appear to the casual observer that my magic effects change. It might appear to the casual reader that my magic affects changes in the outside world. But ultimately, my outside world is one and the same with my inside world. If my magic does indeed bring about some desired change, it merely proves to me that somehow, some way, I have succeeded in transforming myself into the type of person to whom such things happen. In the spring of 2002, 20 years ago, I received an email from Israel. Now, that's a name I made up because I'm not using his real name. A rabbi living on the East Coast who wrote that he was familiar with my work and felt confident I could magically help him resolve a serious problem. In his first note, he did not describe his problem or what he wanted me to do. He said he wanted to simply introduce himself and provide me with personal information which he begged I would verify and keep confidential. This included his full name, address, professional titles, educational degrees, and details of his standing within an influential community of Orthodox Jews. He closed by restating his sincerity and that he was willing to fly me to the East Coast, pay my expenses, and award me with whatever my fee may be for, quote, this kind of black magic work, unquote. As you might imagine, I regularly receive letters and emails from some pretty colorful and sometimes disturbed individuals. I also occasionally receive requests from people asking me to curse an enemy, repel a psychic attack, expel a demon, extract an embedded extraterrestrial, or kindly endorse their claims that they are Jesus Christ, Aleister Crowley, or Cagliostro. I nearly always leave these requests unanswered. But Rabbi Israel's note struck me as being something more. I took a few minutes and investigated on the internet. I easily found a mountain of information about Israel's very ethnic hometown. When I added his name to the search criteria, I found it prominently positioned among the religious and educational leaders of that community. I found it very odd that this pillar of piety would ask me to do anything of a black magic nature. Because he said he was familiar with my work, I assumed he was also familiar with the doctrines of esoteric Judaism. After all, the most popular systems of Western magic have their foundation in the Hebrew Kabbalah. The term black magic wouldn't necessarily strike the same irrational terror in the heart of an esoteric Jew as it would in that of a mainstream Krizelmew. I was intrigued, so I cautiously emailed him back and inquired about the details of his problem. His response was immediate and poignantly candid. His only son, David, who himself was a rabbi, had been married for 2 years and had not yet become a father. David and his wife, Sarah, had been examined by physicians who found them both to be in good health and capable of conceiving a child. After giving me a short and breathtakingly politically incorrect lecture on the religious and cultural importance of his son having a child, especially a boy, he repeated his offer to immediately bring me to the East Coast and pay me to do whatever was necessary to make his daughter-in-law pregnant. After I banished from my vulgar comedian's brain 1,000 crude and sophomoric possible responses to this statement, I took a day to gather my thoughts and ponder how I should respond to this offer. Now, I hope the reader appreciates the fact that I am not a wealthy man. I connive and struggle day to day and month to month just to pay the rent on our little duplex. That's what we were living in at the time. And pay the extortion fees to the blood-sucking organized crime cartels that pose as America's health insurers. But how do I really feel? Try as we might, in our 42 years of marriage, and now 52, Constance and I have never been able to rise above the station of genteel poverty. I confess the thought of taking financial advantage of this situation did indeed cross my lumpen proletariat mind. The next day I wrote back and answered as honestly as I could and insisted it would not be necessary for him to bring me to the East Coast or for him to come to California, and that I would be happy to freely offer my magical advice. I frankly stated, however, that I thought it would be unwise for me to attempt to magically intrude in the lives of his family in this manner. He responded within minutes, insisting that, on the contrary, he did most certainly want me to magically intrude. Specifically, he wanted me to call up a demon of the Goetia and command it to make Sarah pregnant. I replied to the effect that even if I were willing and able to raise a fertility demon, and Sarah did become pregnant and give birth to a baby boy, there would be serious and unavoidable psychological consequences for both the child and his family. I asked him to realize how, like in a fairy tale, the blessing would soon turn into a curse. How the happiness that would first accompany the child's birth would soon be overshadowed by the nagging fear that every illness, every accident, every injury or misfortune visited upon the child throughout his lifetime was somehow the evil result of the demonic black magic operation that engendered his nativity. The rabbi coldly responded, I am willing to take such a curse upon myself. Let me check my clock here. I think that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Tomorrow we'll pick up on how I responded to that statement. So until tomorrow, start your weekend right now. Take the rest of the day off. Continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.